I think it's there's going to be a lot to be talked about because already people are excited and gearing up for the anticipation of some big companies potentially IPOing, if not this year, shortly thereafter in 27. I think with SpaceX and OpenAI, Anthropic, and maybe Liquid Death. You got some big companies that are thinking about that IPO. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Most of these are hundreds of billions of dollars. So they're going to raise, north of, a few billion. And we'll probably see some record-setting ones here next year. So those are like almost a certainty. I mean, I certainly hear it in the market that these are going to be out there. There has to be some liquidity for their previous investors who've put hundreds of millions to billions of dollars in for previous series rounds. And so we're going to see some of that come out, and they'll be, public. But what I really think we should talk about is some of the smaller IPOs, ones that are targeting that sub 250 million valuation, and sort of how that looks, and where sort of advisors. I think we're going to continue to see in that, some of those smaller IPOs, because the break isn't as bad if it goes the wrong way. And I think we'll see some of that, and hopefully down the road. And really on the smaller ones, in my view, and I'd love to hear yours, Brian, is credibility certainly matters more than the growth, because these companies, while they are where they're at, will grow, and people want growth. But you have to have a credible story that people aren't, the deal's not being pulled, that the numbers aren't changing, there's no shifting. Really, when I advise these kind of companies, making sure their capital structures sound. Having multiple share classes can sometimes be confusing for folks, and so making sure that you understand that as well. Love to get your take on that, though, Brian. What are you seeing or thinking this year?
I have to agree with you that we know the big ones are coming, right? And I think what's going to happen there, though, is that's going to create a lot of excitement and a lot more interest in these smaller IPOs, because people see this is the route. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is before VCs became what they are today, VCs, which are basically institutions, right, for their financial institutions, just that they're on the west side of the United States instead of on the eastern seaboard, right?
Hmm.
But before then, and this is not too long ago. I mean, I remember like it was yesterday in the the 80s, the 90s, and for me, really getting involved in the 90s and then into the early 2000s. If a company had a great idea and they had proof of concept, and some had revenue and some didn't, but they actually used an IPO to fund the company. They didn't go through your Series A's, B's, C's, and and all the letters of the alphabet to get that initial capital. There's a lot that went to market, and I know that because I was a part of a number of them. And it was a way for companies that might not have had access to the right VC or the right angel investor, to go public, to raise capital and have a shot. And I think we're going to see a lot of businesses like that meet the minimum thresholds. And then for the big gap that exists right now is your lower mid markets, your companies that might be have an enterprise value of 20 million, 50 million, 100 million dollars, that is too small for the attention of a major investment bank or a major PE firm. How do they exit? How do
Hmm.
they how do they get out? What do they do? Some of those businesses we're literally going to see just fold up and close down, and which is unfortunate because still today, even with corporate taking everything over, small business, the lower mid markets, that is the heartbeat of America. It is the heartbeat of our economy, what powers it. And we need it. And I think that the smaller IPO will help us preserve that, the integrity of our country and the base of our economy.